Hello everyone, welcome to Chakani Institution. I hope you are doing well. I also welcome all students who are doing accounting for lawyers. Today I want us to go through what we call a correspondence. So in a correspondence, as you know, we have two situations. There will be a situation where you are required to record when the business is instructor and when the business is correspondent. So I want us to go through the situation when the business is instructor today. So in order for us to be able to challenge this question of a business instructing another entity, so you need to have a certain steps. I have created a steps to record. So if you can check on my screen right now, we have a step 1 to step 6. So these are the steps that we need to use in order for us to be able to record when the business is instructor. So let's first go and check the question that we have. Let's look at the question. So if you can check on my screen right now, I have a question. On 10 January 2021, you instruct Sithole Antenis. That simply means that we are the instructor. We have instructed our correspondent, which is Sithole Antenis. So who has a practice in Sizwezi to collect money on behalf of your client, Mrs. Shudu Payne. So it means that this is the information that we need to record when we are the instructor. We are the instructor. We have instructed Sithole to offer a service to our client, Mrs. Shudu Payne. So this is the information that we have. So how can you record this information? So first of all, we provide the accounts. Let's go and see which accounts are needed first. So if you can check right now, I have accounts. I have a trust bank, business bank, trust correspondent, business correspondent, and the trust clients, and also the fee account. So these are the accounts needed. These are the accounts needed when the business is instructor. So in order for us to record in these account, students, we need to follow the steps. So I'm going to do the steps and recording step by steps. Please make sure that you have something to write on. So let's go to the first step and see. So if you can check the first step here, we are starting with what we call a check herewith. A check herewith. So what you need to do with that check herewith, you debit the trust bank and credit a trust correspondent. That simply means that on the account of the trust bank, on the debit, you are going to write a trust correspondent. On the credit side of the trust correspondent, you are going to write the trust bank. And then you rush to the activity. If you can check in our activity there, our check herewith is 14,050. So let's take that 14,050 and we follow the steps. We are saying that we are debiting the trust bank by trust correspondent. Can you see on the debit side of the trust bank, we have a 14,050. Then we go to the trust correspondent. If you can check on the trust correspondent there, we have 14,050 and it's named trust bank. So that is the first step that you need to do. So I'm sure you are following the logic. Let's go to step number 2. Step number 2, we deal with what we call your allowance, 1/3. 1/3. So what you need to do with this your allowance, you need to debit a business correspondent by a fees, and then you credit a fees by a business correspondent. So it means that on the debit side of the business correspondent, we are going to write this allowance and name it what? A fees income. And then on the credit of the fees account, we are going to write it what? A business correspondent. Double entry rule. So let's go and take the amount from activity. We just look for the name. Can you see? We have 1/3 antennas, 1/3 allowance, which is here 400. Then we go back to our book. We are saying that this 400 must be debited on the business correspondent according to the step, and we name it what? A fee income. That simply means that it's going to the fee account, and then we go to the fee account on the credit side because we have already debit on the business correspondent. We go to the credit side of the fee account, we wrote 400, and then we name it business correspondent. That's step number two. So then we go to step number 3. Step number 3 is amount collected. So what you need to do with this amount collected, you debit the trust correspondent. And credit the trust clients. That simply means that the trust correspondent is debited by trust clients and credit trust client by trust correspondent. So let's go to our activity and look for this amount. Amount collected from Mrs. Pume is 15,000. So now we go to our account. We are saying that we are going to debit a trust correspondent. Can you see on the trust correspondent there on the minus side of the trust correspondent? We write 15,000 and we name it trust clients. That simply means that it needs to reflect on the trust clients on the credit because it's already on the debit. And then on the debit of trust clients, we have 15,000 there. So that's how you do a amount collected. Step number 3. Then let's go to step number 4. Step number 4, we deal with other fees. And with these fees, you need to go and debit a trust clients. It means that now we are charging the client. The correspondent is charging the client. And then the correspondent need to receive these fees on the debit on the credit, of the trust correspondent. So let's go to our activity. Sorry for that. In our activity, other fees, we add all fees. We have someone cost, messenger fees, collection commissions. Sometimes there will be a sheriff fees. So when we add them together, it's 450 plus 150 plus 750, which give us 1,350. And we are saying that we are going to charge the client. The correspondent is charging the client. It means that on the trust clients, we subtract that money on the debit of the trust clients. We name it a trust correspondent. That simply means that it's going on the credit of the trust correspondent. If you can check on the trust correspondent account, it's there and it's named a trust client. 1,350. That's how you record other fees. And then we go back to our steps. Remember, we are using the steps to record. And then step number 5 is we transfer. So we need to transfer. What are you transferring? You need to transfer what is on the debit of the business correspondent. If there is any amount on the debit of the business correspondent, we need to transfer. We need to take our money from the correspondent as a business. Now we need to take money. So it means that we are going to credit business correspondent, and then we debit trust correspondent, and also we credit trust bank and the debit business bank. Remember, a transfer process took place between 4 accounts. So let's go and check what is due to the business right now. Go back to our book. If you can check on the business correspondent on the debit, we have 400 for fee income. That money is due. We need to get that money from the correspondent. So we are going to do what? We go to the correspondent, trust correspondent here. If you can check there, we take this amount. So we take this amount. Is going to the business correspondent. We'll write it business correspondent, and then it's 400. And then this amount need to go to business correspondent on the credit. So it means that on the business correspondent, on the credit, we are going to write it what? A trust correspondent. Trust correspondent of how much? Of 400. Remember, it took place between the 4 accounts. We go to our trust bank and business bank. If you can check that on the trust bank, there is 400. Business bank is going to the what? To the business bank. On the business bank account, on the debit trust bank 400, we have transfer. So this is how we transfer on step number 5. Then we go to step number 6. Step number 6 state that pay off the clients by closing trust clients. So now we are paying off the clients. We need to pay off the clients by doing what? By closing the account. So going to the trust clients. If you can check on the trust clients, we close off. It means that on the trust clients, we only have 15,000 at first and 1,000 on the debit, 350. So if you can check the debit, it's not equal to the credit. So we back up the what? The debit. So we take the bigger number, we put it as a total. 15,000 of a credit becomes the total of the debit. So how much do we need? We need what we call 13,650. That 13,650, we name it a trust bank. That simply means that amount need to reflect on the trust bank. Let's go to the trust bank. If you can check on the trust bank here, we have 13,650. So after that, we need to close our accounts because we are done with the steps. You need to close trust bank, trust correspondent, trust clients. We have already closed it. So we want to close a trust bank. A trust bank needs to balance automatically. So the debit and the credit need to balance automatically. So on the debit, we have only 14,050, which becomes the total, even on the credit. So when we add 400 together with 13,650, we get 4,050. That simply means that everything is right so far. And then we come to the trust correspondent. Even trust correspondent, it will balance automatically. So we add what we have on the debit, and we totalize. We will get that particular amount. If on the trust correspondent we have 14,050 on the credit plus 1,350, which is 15,400. This amount, there was a mistake here, is a 15,400. Our total is 15,400. So this is how we deal with the correspondent when the business is an instructor. So if you have questions or if you need any emphasis for this part 1 of the business when the Anthony is an instructor, don't hesitate to contact me 079-676-3071 so that we can address this issue. This is the part 1 of the correspondent. This is the part 1 of correspondent. So I will see you next time on part 2 when we are dealing with the records of the business when we are the correspondent. So wish you the best in your examination.